Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I hope you had a sumptuous lunch and you're ready for this amazing session on the future of national statistical offices and how statistics laws can enable effective stewardship and regulation. My name is Davis Adieno. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at I Am the Code, which is a global, it's an African-led global movement in over 89 countries focusing on digital literacy and supporting young women and girls and young people with skilling and upskilling. This is a high-level panel discussion, and I'm joined by, indeed, a high-level panel, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and their institution so you get to hear their voice, and then we'll formally kick off the session. So over to you, Dr. McDonald Jojo Budo.
Good afternoon. I've already been introduced. He has called me by my name, so I'm McDonald Jojo Budo, Director General of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Welcome.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Samuel Kobna Enim. I'm the director for the Africa Center for Statistics.
Good afternoon. My name is Howie Chen. I work at UN Statistics Division, working on a few things. The traditional household survey side, a little bit, and then non-traditional citizen data side. So I would like to bring these two dimensions in. Very humbled to be here with distinguished guests and speakers.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Gugi, Project Manager, African Institute for Statistics, StatAfric. I'm happy to be here to echo African Union voice. Thank you.
Round of applause for my panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we know that national statistical offices have been traditionally mandated to produce and disseminate official statistics to support national planning, policy formulation, monitoring, and decision-making. However, the emergence of increasingly diverse data ecosystems, sources characterized by administrative data, citizen-generated data, privately held data, geospatial technologies, big data, artificial intelligence, many, many big buzzwords. All these are transforming the environment within which official statistics are being produced, managed, shared, and applied. And that's the conversation that we are working. One of the key enabling factors and environmental issues is basically statistical laws. And that is the subject that this afternoon we'll be hearing from practitioners here, experts, leaders in the field, on how statistical laws can enable effective data stewardship and regulation in this rapidly changing environment. Now, we are going to start with a lady. I am a gentleman, so ladies first. Howie, thank you so much for joining us. UNSD has done a lot of work in this field. You've worked with many national statistical offices across the world. And this is an issue that's really emerging because everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. People are talking about big data. Do we have the legislative frameworks really to support these conversations in an environment that is rapidly changing? And so if you could speak to that and basically give the perspectives from a UNSD experience and interaction with the national statistical offices, would be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Davis. I would like to also question everyone here too. Big data is not something new. It has appeared into the official statistics circle for almost 20 years, 10, 15 years, and at one point we thought survey would be no longer needed. So what has changed? And we didn't do much about it as a community. So can we actually do something about all the new things that are popping up? What has changed since the big data arena? So a few things. We've done quite a bit of study of national statistical laws. First of all, a lot of them are very outdated. very outdated. And not only it's outdated by 40, 50 years, so the role of NSO is not very clear, it's very narrow in the law. So I think that the stewardship or the role of NSO within the national statistical system, or if we're going to the private sector data or citizen data, the national data ecosystem, what is the role of NSO needs to be clearly clarified there. And the other thing I think in the law, when AI and big data all came in, is the confidentiality. There usually is a clause in the law about data should be confidential. It's the role of NSO to keep them confidential. But now, with AI and all the cloud computing and models, and there are a lot of signals about all of us, only just saying disseminating, disaggregate data or aggregated data without our names, is that sufficient in protecting our confidentiality? I would like really to challenge the law to think about how to protect when AI comes in, to combine everything, merge everything, got all the signal about us, and then we'll be able to identify each single one of us. So I think that's the two items I would really like to highlight. And the other thing, just one point, and when we talk about many NSOs in the law actually they are not encouraged, even not allowed to work with non-government agencies. So that's very challenging. Talking about civil society organizations or private sector, I think that part is pretty ancient.
Are there any attempts to sort of support national statistical offices to review or revise their national statistical laws and to make sure that they catch up or update? Like you say, some of them are 40, 50 years old. That's quite old. I mean, things have changed in the realm of data, technology, and other spaces.
Yes, so we do have, there's a generic national statistical law, and then my colleagues at UNSD do provide technical support. But in terms of the AI age, I think there's a lot that we need to think about: ethics, consent, confidentiality. All these things are pretty new, still up in the air, that needs to be integrated into even the methodological point of view.
Now, in terms of safeguards, Howie, should we still retain some elements of what is currently existing in the laws and then also adopt new elements, or we should overhaul everything, really?
Maybe I can leave that question to Prof.
Prof, over to you. The mantle has been handed over to you. Should we be overhauling everything or just some elements, I think, from your perspective?
Thank you very much, colleagues. Once again, good afternoon, and it's a great delight to be part of this very important conversation. But Davis, let me try and sort of put a context to this conversation. As my colleague Howie indicated, most of the laws are outdated. But I'm grappling with, as a statistician, what is the threshold for you to define something as outdated? My challenge is that in this community on the subject of law, we treat it as a binary, whether it's outdated or not with a certain threshold, whether it's reflective of contemporary issues with a certain set of indicators, whether during the drafting stage it did reflect on future changes that we all anticipate to happen. And the most difficult part for me is, if you've never been part of drafting a law in a country, there are certain things that you'll be oblivious of. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to be part of the drafting and the passage of the 2019 statistical law in Ghana. That was when I joined the service. But dear delegates, I joined at a time that this document had been with Parliament for more than 3-4 years, approximately 4.5 years. Can you imagine the extent to which content of the initial draft had to remain in it and contents that had to be changed just because of the differences in the composition of Parliament? So this conversation on passage of law, how outdated it is, the content that it needs to have, should really be reflective of the political situation in the country and what it takes to pass a law. Davis, the second thing that I want to highlight is you've raised a very important issue how these laws are reflective of conversations on digitization and artificial intelligence. Now, if you've been part of that process, you always get to know that something like an AI strategy will never go to Parliament. Something like a digitization strategy will never go to Parliament. So if, as a statistician, I push that there should be functional linkages between the law and these strategies, Parliament on one side doesn't know the content of these things, and the processes of passing these strategies does not involve the national statistical offices, and for that matter, the expected functional relationships, you're not going to get it. When I joined the Africa Center for Statistics last November, I was fortunate to be part of the UN GGIM 11th meeting, and one of my strongest proposals is, at our level, how can we establish functional relationships between digitization strategies, the UN GGIM looking forward what it should be like, an AI strategy, and for that matter, a statistical law. So my request is that we move the conversation away from, or complement the conversation with the processes of passing a law and how we can ensure that there are functional linkages across them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nim, and you raise very critical points around the political aspects. Sometimes we ignore the political aspects of and the influence that that actually has on the formulation process. And even the political environment will determine the kind of law that you get. Sometimes it can be very progressive or non-progressive, just depending on who's actually in office. Dr. MacDonald Obudo, as Kenya continues to modernize its statistical systems, what lessons can other countries draw from KNBS? And I know that you're also in the process of revising our law. Are there some things we should be picking from Ghana, as Professor Nim has just highlighted?
Thank you so much, Davis, for the chance. And I would like to just mention one thing concerning what the professors talked about, and that is the duration that some of these legislative instruments will take in Parliament. It takes long. When we did our first act in 2006, it was a long process, right from 2003 to 2006 for us to have it coming into being. Of course, it was the first one that was moving us from a department of government to a state corporation. But again, even when you did the revision in 2019, yes, the revision was done in 2019, but the process has started much earlier, and it took a very long time. The interesting thing here is that, well, the strange one is that if a parliament, particular parliament fails to complete the process, then the next one will have to start afresh. You start from zero again. And we are starting with another set of people, because not everybody would get back to the same parliament. And so it becomes a very lengthy process. It is even lengthy in our case here if by any chance the act is touching on the national government and touching on the county government, because then it has to be debated upon and cleared by the two houses, which then means that the National Assembly has to deal with it, the Senate has to deal with it before it is approved. And actually, this is our situation that we are in, because then we are revising our act today, which has gone through a number of processes. We have not submitted it to Parliament for the other processes, but we have gone up to the point of public participation, which was completed on 20th of last month. So we are putting together all those feedback from the public to help us get to the next level, which of course is still a lengthy process. But the key thing is that lessons learned that one can learn from it is that one is that you need to have a social organization would require a proper legislation, because then for it to be trusted, for an institution to have the authority and be trusted with the statistics, then the legal instruments must be super. And of course, then with it comes the element of coordination. With it comes the element of stewardship. And this is one thing that the Bureau has demonstrated, that when you bring all the players together, be it the ministry, the departments, the agencies, the county governments in our case, and all the other players, you bring them together and have them coordinated, then you'll be able to, an act of that kind would be able to make your statistics very strong. So we do not just treat these players as data suppliers, but we treat them as equal partners when they are producing the statistics. And that is the more reason as to why in our situation, when we talk of coming up with, generating data, we sit together. We have the technical working committees for different sectors sitting together as a team to look at the data that is, that is being shared, what is coming out, looking at the standards that we need to ensure that is regulated. So trust is built through transparency, it's built through consultation, and of course the clear value of preposition to all, for all the producers, so that we are in line with what we expect to see. Now, legal mandates should also be extended to beyond the government. We have a number of players outside the government, and this is where we have the non-state actors also producing statistics. As you are aware, we are now in the age where, or the era where, we do not just depend on the traditional sources of data. And so when the law allows them to come on board and participate in this, we are well centered to ensure that what we are producing is more complete than before. And of course, through that, we are going to reduce the statistical gaps that we have. And so that is one key thing. But as we do that, there has to be the element of standardization. We must have the element of ensuring that we have methodologies that are certified for use. So we are borrowing this one from the international frameworks that would try to help in how do we compile statistics, how do we analyze statistics, in what kind of frequencies do we do that. And so those kind of standardization would also require to be embedded in our legal instruments so that we are able to make it. Now, if any statistical organization is operating without any proper laws or proper legal instrument, then there's a problem. Because, you know, the public will trust what a statistical organization is doing if it is seen to be independent. But if there are no good laws that would make sure that there's that element of professional independence. I'm talking about professional independence, not administrative, because then NSOs would still depend on the mainstream government for the funding. Yeah. But when it comes to the actual work, we really require that kind of professional independence, which again is only provided by the Act. And of course, beyond the Act would be the statistical regulations that would help in implementing the same Act. And so we are in a space where the NSO should provide leadership, should provide good coordination, and the very same Act should also provide when are we able to provide this kind of statistics. How do we go about it? And so that is the whole process that we are in to make sure that we don't just produce statistics, but we also coordinate and offer stewardship of data. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Obudo, for those reflections and giving Kenya's experience, especially in a highly complex environment where you have complex governance structures. We also heard about the role of international standards, which I know that UNSD for a long time has worked on together with many partners. What do you think are sort of the minimum standard inputs that we need to have in some of these statistical legislations to make sure that across the board, we continue to maintain quality, in terms of methodology, in terms of production, in terms of dissemination and the application.
Thank you. I mean, statistics law, I worked a lot on it. I actually read all of them, 190 laws. But in terms of standard, I'm not an expert. But I want to tag along Professor's response. Now I've been reflecting whether the key elements, so in the generic statistical law, national statistical law, there's a name for it, it's called GLOS. There is a structure like responsibility, delineation, definition. I think a lot of them will still be extremely important to maintain, especially we talk about the role of NSOs, how do you work with other statistical offices. We're not getting into a lot of technical details on this data you should be collecting, that data you should be collecting. So I think I would say that the current might still work with some clauses might need to be revised, but the structure is still perfectly okay. Because it didn't say that, the law doesn't say that NSO should not, the generic law doesn't say that NSO should not work with partners outside of NSS or outside of within the other parts of the data ecosystem. It didn't say that. It says you have to explain, specify, clarify the role of NSO within. So I think I would say that generic law is still very much relevant, but maybe the content needs to be revisited. If you're interested in connecting with my colleague who is an expert on statistical law, I'd be happy to provide the connection.
Excellent. Thank you. And Mr. Ngugi, welcome, because that really speaks to the whole issue of harmonization. And from a continental perspective with StatAfric, how can African countries harmonize statistics laws? Do we even need to harmonize them in the first place? Especially with the standards to support comparability, because that's the other thing. In the age of AI, we talk about, how do we compare? How do we, the sovereignty of data and other related issues that are coming up. We also have integration as a critical subject. So can these laws really, from a harmonization perspective, help us to achieve some of these continental ambitions?
Thank you so much, Davis, and thanks for having me in this panel. Yeah, your question resonates very well with the mandate of StatAfric, which is supposed to be able to harmonize and produce comparable statistics across Africa. And we're supposed to communicate in one voice in terms of matters of having reliable and comparable statistics in the continent. And there are huge disparities between national statistical offices in the continent. And with the huge disparities, it means it's very, very difficult for us to be able to produce comparable and harmonized statistics if we don't have guidelines or we don't have reference documents for us to be able to say that we are able to produce good quality harmonized statistics based on one or an agreed set of standards. One, it's a bit difficult for us to say we can be able to harmonize statistical laws because we have country-specific realities which have to be reflected in country scenarios. And that's why we have a Statistics Act for each NSO. But to add to that, we have the African Union, we have the Africa Charter on Statistics, which actually has been endorsed by the head of states and governments back in 2009. And the countries are supposed to sign and ratify to this charter. The charter is just a complementary document to what we have in the countries. So it's not like a totally different set of rules, but it comes in handy when you have countries which have not been able to have updated statistical laws. Because as you heard from my fellow panelists, we have outdated statistical laws, and it's very difficult for us to say we can harmonize if they are outdated. But if we are able to ratify and sign to the Africa Charter on Statistics, it will be possible for us to be able to abide and to adhere to its provisions. And also, maybe to point out that we've also been able to update and revise the Africa Charter on Statistics from last year. The document is at a point where we are discussing with different stakeholders. We've held several meetings. We've discussed with the national statistical offices. We've held meetings with the young African statisticians for us to hear their voice on what they want to be included in these statistical laws, for us to have, so that we don't leave anyone behind. Thank you.
No, that's a very good point in terms of input of the young people, because a lot, in fact, the environment is changing a lot. There was a session earlier by young people and Gen Zs, and you can clearly tell that in terms of how we formulate these laws and the environment within which the young people are operating, there might be quite significant disparities, but there is an opportunity also, I would say. I'll be coming to you shortly in the plenary. If you've been paying attention, you'll have an opportunity to ask a question. If you've been sleeping, there's going to be a camera focusing on you shortly, just to make sure that you wake up. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with this session, what I'm trying to say is that I'll give you an opportunity to reflect. And the rule is, if you know the answer to your own question, please don't ask it. Just give us the answer straight away, so that we can move quickly. Now, Dr. Obudo, in terms of the content of the law itself, I know that's an issue. There is the framework, the broader framework on the law and the process itself. But what are the things that we should be, what are the themes and the issues that we now should be looking at in the revised law and the currency of some of those issues?
Thank you so much. You know, first of all, when you are even revising or coming up with a new law, one thing in the statistical world is really guided by the fundamental principles of official statistics. That becomes our starting point, because then the principles would give the kind of, would talk about the legal provision, requirement for the legal provision. It will talk about the kind of methodology. Of course, you are given room to make the choices depending on the source of the information, regularity of that information, and the cost element of it. And so, when we are dealing with the law, it requires, in our case, what we are looking at is how do we align to the national legal framework, in which case we are talking of the Constitution of Kenya. So whatever we are doing, it has to be in line with what the Constitution requires us to do, being that we have two levels of government in Kenya, the national and the county one, which then statistics comes out as a concurrent function. And so there is what the county governments are expected to do, and there is what the national government is expected to do. And for the case of the national government, when you're talking of statistics, then you're talking of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Now, in this case, that linkage has to be provided for. Now, beyond that is to look at how, in what regularity do we get this information? Where do we get it from? What kind of conceptual frameworks do we have, do we put in place, so that when we are talking of generation of data, then we are clear that what we are going to produce would meet the requirement of the people. And remember, the Bureau is not producing all sorts of statistics. There is so much that is coming from other quarters. We have administrative data, which would come from different players that are producing that kind of statistics. And it is one of the best source of statistics, because you would be assured of its regularity in terms of how frequent are you able to get it, how cheap will it be, and how refined should it be. How well it is refined would now bring us together, and it is part of the law that can we have the standards that are required to allow what is coming from different sources to be put together for use. For example, when you look at our economic survey that we are producing every year, you are able to see that tables are connected. You know, you are coming from employment, you are going to manufacturing, you are going to governance, peace and security, and all that. These tables are coming, the tables are coming from different institutions, but they are connected. So that kind of linkages should be provided for in the legal instrument. Of course, there are many other provisions that would require, and especially when it comes to the confidentiality of information, the obligation, just to ensure that what is given for statistical purposes is actually used strictly used for that purpose, and not given to any other government institution to reinforce other laws. Yeah? So that means the element of anonymization of data must be given. We have the Data Protection Act, which also protects the information that will be coming from individual. We have to connect that one to the existing laws also, so that nobody's space is infringed by the data that we are getting. And of course, it is through that, through the confidentiality of information, that the NSOs would keep the trust of the people to continue getting information. Because, you see, we are getting data from individuals, we are getting information at the household level, and we are getting information at the establishment level, which would mean that we are also dealing with businesses. And so if we don't conform to what is required in terms of privacy to information, then we lose it and the bureau cannot exist. Thank you.
Excellent. Prof, just looking at the Ghanaian experience, which you highlighted earlier, what would you say, the reforms to the legal or the law, statistics law, what did that mean in terms of the impact that has had from before when the law was revised and after? Were there any significant changes that you observed that you can share with the audience?
Davis, do you want a very candid response when I was in the position as government statistician, or an expectational response?
Let us go with the latter.
Okay. So, colleagues, thankfully, the current GS is here, so I'm hoping that my reflections would inform us going forward. We all need to appreciate the fact that law is a very high-level instrument, and why I started with a candid response is that a number of us as NSOs think about when the law was passed, after X number of years, when the new one will be passed. Because it's a very high-level document, if you are part of the process with the passage of law, you just get to celebrate. It's announced, and it ends there. Really, in practice, nothing happens. If we really want the law to work, a couple of things would have to happen. First is the operationalization of the law, which is the legislative instrument. So if you pass a law and you don't quickly follow up with a legislative instrument, which gives us the framework for us to work with, it becomes any other document that wouldn't have any effect. Once the legislative instrument is passed, we've been talking about trust since yesterday. We are talking about stewardship. Any NSO that gets a law passed, that gets an implementation strategy through a legislative instrument, and the NSO does not periodically review itself against the law, and for that matter, the legislative instrument, I really don't think we need to be having this conversation. Because if we are expecting trust from the general public, then what we should do is every year, not just publish a release calendar which will say what you intend doing, and publish a statistical yearbook at the end of the year to tell us what you've been able to do, but really benchmark yourself with what the law says, what the legislative instrument says, and really from an honest point of view, get a third agency to review what you've done as against your statistical law and the legislative instrument. And with my experience both in Ghana and at the Africa Center for Statistics, quite a number of African countries are not doing that. But we keep talking about trust, we talk about stewardship, and we are talking about the effectiveness of these. So in response to your question, it's about law, but really what it takes for the law to be effective, I don't think we are doing it as NSOs. Thank you.
Well, there's a round of applause from the audience. And Howie, I know that you are just about to leave us. And on that point, in terms of actual implementation, what's your experience and what is it that especially global level institutions like yourselves can do to support and accelerate this progress?
So, I mean, we support laws or revamping or revising. At the same time, of course, UNSD does a lot of work from other angles. We support implementation of different programs. Having said that, I would like to self-criticize in our work. I think our support has not been very systematic in supporting the mandate the countries has committed, or NSOs have committed themselves to. For example, if Ghana is going to implement the new law, put that in practice, we're not supporting that angle. I think we come from different programs, like, for example, I support countries on getting better household survey and work with citizen data, and my colleagues work with administrative data. Do we often work together? Yes, we do, but not sufficiently. So I think we can definitely do a better job in really supporting countries in implementing its law, put law into practice, but really guided by countries on their needs and how they want us to come in. So I think that's the support. We are supporting through different angles, but I think we really this support should be guided. And not just us, we should work with all the international organizations. My eyesight isn't very good, so I cannot see many of you. But you're from our sister agencies. I think this is the part that we should work better together with everybody in supporting the countries.
Excellent, thank you. In terms of that rallying call for coordination and practice, do you still need to leave or you're with us? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Hawaii has another commitment, and so she's going to leave the stage. Round of applause for those amazing inputs. Thank you so much for your contribution. And the statement that you made, actually, as you were leaving, really speaks to what Start Africa is doing. So, Mr. Ngugi, what should Start Africa do to help countries move from legal reform to implementation? I think that's a question that has come up, and Professor Enim has also alluded to that, particularly in areas such as interoperability, data governance.
I totally agree with the panelists that having statistical laws is very necessary condition, but it may not be very, very sufficient for us to be able to go where we want to go. Because the legal frameworks need to be supported by so many other factors, such as political will. We also need to adequately resource the activities that you want to undertake. And we have to be committed for full implementation of the acts. And at Start Africa, of course, with the collaboration with other partners, UNECA and ADB, we are, I can't say that we are doing our best, but we've tried, like, even to put DGs of NSOs together every year in a committee we call a Committee of Director Generals on National Statistics, for us to be able to discuss way forward and make recommendations on what need to be done in the next following year. And we also try to assess what has been done in the past 1 year. We are also working on the operationalization and the implementation of a continental strategy for harmonization of statistics, which has various provisions in terms of statistics harmonization. Key among them is having specialized technical working groups where we draw expertise from national statistical systems for each thematic area. Sasha 2 has 18 especially technical working groups, and our focus has been to operationalize all of them, which we've been able to do that. And they do meet regularly, twice per year as required, and they're able to bring forward their action plan every year, and also looking at what we need to prioritize in each thematic area. And to come back to this topic, I think 3 of the specialized harmonized group work on topics which we are discussing here. One of them is on education, science, and technology, which is very relevant to the topic we are discussing. And also one on emerging issues. We are very aware that there are so many issues that are coming up which we need to reflect continuously on our implementation of statistical activities. Then the other one is the use of ICT in statistics data production. We're also supposed to support member states, and also our support goes beyond member states because we're also looking at what the regional economic communities are doing. If you look at the capacities to implement statistical activities, it differs across board. You would really want different institutions to implement different statistical activities based on their strategic plans or national strategy for development of statistics. But you realize some of our regions, they do not have well-established statistical units. So they are not able to bring out matters about statistical activities well in the debate. And we are really supporting REX to be able to establish statistical units as well as having their national, regional strategy for development of statistics. Yes, we cannot say that we're already there, but we have put efforts on board. We are seeing peer reviews being done every year by DGs. We recommend DGs of NSOs to choose their peers in terms of who do you want to peer review your work, because the DGs understand the national statistical system very well. And the recommendations that are brought up, we are able to pick them and support the NSO in terms of implementing these requirements or the issues raised. Finally, I think we need to have a well-functioning national strategy for development of statistics, which are not supposed to be leaving anyone behind. And I'm sure the process of development of the strategies is as good as the implementation. If you leave people behind in terms of the development of the strategy, definitely it means there will be gaps in terms of implementation. And I also look at the implementation of the continental strategy. We did a midterm review last year, and we found that the implementation by member states was around 63%. This raised some eyebrows because we are looking at 9 years of implementation of Sasha 2, and it was only remaining 1 year. Then we say we are at 63%. So we really need to refocus in terms of our strategies, our priorities, so as to address the country-specific priorities, requirement, regional integrations, and also respond to the needs of our reporting in terms of the continental and international requirements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngugi. Now, I'd like to turn to the audience. This is your moment. Are there any specific questions, reflections? I know there's going to be some roaming mics. Any questions, reflections? It's very dark back there. So there's a hand up here. Yeah, please introduce yourself, then offer your reflection. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So my name's Nick McTurk. I'm from UNFPA. Yes, in a global situation of declining finances for statistical operations, how can statistical laws be used to leverage finances to ensure robust and sustainable statistical systems within countries? Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any other question? There's one across the other side. Then we'll come to the middle. Over here at the front.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Molu Tepo. I'm a director at Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. My question is, we know all over the world government processes are slow. And yet the technology so fast with the AI now, very fast. So what could be the minimum things the government can do to make sure that because of this, the pace, the citizens are not disadvantaged, that the processes do not take so long? Because especially with the legislations, it's frustrating. An amendment takes many years to happen. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. There was a question at the back. And then I'll come to you. We'll take those as the first round, get some responses, and then, apologies, it's at the back. The gentleman, Inspector, I know him, but I'd like him to introduce himself. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Theodore Joloza, Office for National Statistics, UK. How can NSOs or countries avoid tensions between different types of legislations? So a country that I will not name was having good data sharing agreements between different government departments. But then at a later stage, the country adopted or developed a data protection and privacy law, which government departments now started to use to deny access to other government departments of their data. How do we avoid that from happening in other countries? Thank you.
Let's have responses to those questions, and I'll open it up to the panelists. Feel free to respond to any of the questions that have been asked. We can start with you, Dr. Budo.
Thank you so much. Let me start with the last question. I'll make an attempt of responding to something. The concern from Theo is that how do you avoid the acts or government legislations clashing, and especially when it comes to statistics? I think I would say that for the Kenyan case, we are lucky in the sense that in our act, it provides for any matters on statistics. If they are clashing, then the Statistics Act supersedes. So that is provided for. And in fact, it could be the only way of ensuring, it could be one of the good ways of ensuring that you cannot use another act to disadvantage the collection of information. Otherwise, many would use it against you to the extent that now your law becomes ineffective and you cannot produce anything. That is my first one on that. Again, about the element of financing of statistical operations, I think we didn't have this, but in our revision that we are doing, we have tried mentioning what my friend Stephen Ngugi has talked about here, that there is the African Charter on Statistics, which then requires that countries that have signed and ratified the same should give the statistical offices 0.05%, 0.15% of the revenue collected to the operation of statistics. And so in our revision, we are now factoring in that one with the hope that once that is passed, then we'll be at least well financed to undertake the statistical operations. Now, on my board member, Director Tepo, about the government being slow and getting to how would the government, I did not get the question properly, I don't know if you captured it. Strategies and laws of...
Yeah, basically, government processes are very, very, very slow. And there are many things that governments can do, really. But in terms of the speed at which these legislations are taking place, and then the environment is rapidly changing.
Yeah, actually, on this one is a bit tough because you see, we would be as a statistical office, we would be starting from the executive side. Yeah, we move that process. As we do that, we also bring on board the side of the Attorney General to support us, the Kenya Law Reform Commission to support us. Now, that will go well, but now, when you hand it over to the legislature, then you start getting hurdles at that point. Of course, when you're working with the judiciary, the support is easily given, but then on the other side, it becomes a big problem, to the extent that a few things might even change that would require even a revision again. Yeah? The revision of the draft before, then it can go to the next level. So if you're not patient enough, it will pass without you now doing the revision. If you are quick to pull it back, then you might not even have the advantage of having it approved anyway. And so we now depend on the legislature to ensure that processes are taking place. Now, one way that we have noted is to have some candid discussion with some of the champions for statistics that you have in Parliament, so that they could support you and try to speed up the processes by influencing their colleagues to get that support done. Otherwise, if you don't have that kind of arrangement where you have to work very closely to some of these parliamentarians, it might be a bit difficult. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, these are very practical questions, and I'll try and respond to it at a very functional level. So in terms of how we capitalize on the laws to address the financial challenges that we currently have, let's appreciate again the processes of passage of a law. It's the document for Parliament, and in the case for Ghana, the process, they will clearly ask you, does this provision give any financial implications or warrant any financial implication for the government? If the response is yes, it wouldn't find its way in the law. So this is why I emphasize strategies, and I'm happy my colleague here talked about the national strategy for the development of statistics, and also I talked about the legislative instrument. So these are avenues by which we can address the current financial challenges that we have. On the question of avoiding of laws, again, I'm going to be very functional on this. You can have in your statistical provision that whatever happens, the statistical law supersedes. But in practice, it would never work. The statistical law cannot override a security matter. Statistical agencies require data from the security agencies, but that data has to be guided because of the security implications. The National Identification Authority in Ghana has its law. Before it shares data with the statistical office, it has to go through some processes. So we really have to go to the functional level and see how data sharing can be operationalized. And again, this is the work of the strategy. And my colleague here, the director for KNBS, the same response. In my earlier submission, I tried to draw the distinction between what the law says and what the strategies allows us to do. We cannot have the pace at which technology is evolving fully reflected in laws. So once you do the law and you don't do your legislative instrument, you don't assess your national strategy for the development of statistics, there will still be that time lag between the pace at which technology is evolving and what we expect to see in the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me also echo my voice without repeating what my fellow panelists have said. And it's true, at DG, at the African Union, we have recommended that 0.15% of the national budgets be dedicated to statistical activities. But we find implementation of this to be a bit slow. 9 years down the line, we have seen that the implementation is wanting, and only a few national statistics offices have been allocated the 0.15% of the national budget. So we really need the national statistical system to be able to use these provisions for them to be able to harness more resources, because this is something that has been endorsed by the heads of states and government and becomes a requirement for us to be able to implement. And a well-designed statistical law should be able to support continuous development of the national strategies, which can be revised at any given time. You may not be able to revise the law as you require, but you're able to revise your strategy and also your resource mobilization plans. So this strategy and also the resource mobilization plans are good documents which are you are able to present to stakeholders and partners for support for statistical activities. Yes, we agree that technologies are changing very fast, and we may not be able to conform so well in our national statistical laws, but we can be able to reflect this in our strategies. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think critical elements being raised there in terms of domestic resource mobilization and how we can use these laws. There are a couple more questions. So we'll have these two. Now, to the technical team at the back, the counter says we still have 28 minutes. But according to the program, we are supposed to be ending in about 15 minutes. So I need clarity if we have more time or the session is ending in about 15 minutes. But as you do that, let's have the two questions.
Thank you. I'm John Sibiringiro from the National Institute of Statistics Rwanda. My question is about the stewardship. So in the future, most of statistics that will be used for official statistics will come from different other sources, such as administrative statistics, satellite imagery, and so on. So now, how can laws support? How can law support statistical office to become good stewards of those data which are produced by the other institution? And the second one, data producers, I think they may have also right to publish what the data that they are owning. So, but we know that it requires times to ensure that to ensure the quality of administrative statistics and to assess the maturity of those merging sources of data. So how can law regulate that that process, maybe to ensure that the dissemination or the publication of the data is controlled to avoid any conflict between the current official statistics that are being produced by statistical office and those published by the other institution who are owning those sorts of data. Thank you.
Just behind you, there's a gentleman. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Ekaru. I'm the County Director for Monitoring and Evaluation from Turkana County, Kenya. And just to add my voice on what of the rest of my colleagues have tried to bring out, I am concerned that probably statistics needs to be incentivized. And so my question is, how can we incentivize statistics such that just as the other documents, like the budgets in Kenya and the CIDPs, those are the county integrated development plans, the ADPs, they usually have a timeline of delivery. Just by 1st of June, this year, we should have a budget in place. And because money is attached to budgets, I mean, they are usually fully funded and they are timely. But we've struggled so much to bring out the issues of statistics and to ensure that everyone is converted to appreciate the fact that statistics should just be budgeted or planned for, just like any other infrastructure that we plan for. Because as we can see, like an example in Kenya is, the 47 counties are not at par in terms of the county statistical abstracts. While others are at they are most updated, we have others that don't even have one. Same to the model statistics policies. We have those ones that have and others don't. Now, I believe the room here is converted, that statistics is the most powerful tool we can use to make decisions. But then, I think we have problems with our politicians. The political goodwill is usually not there, most of the times. You go preach from morning to evening, but at the end of the day, when projects and programs are funded, statistics is given the least budget. And so you can imagine, you are given 2 million to monitor over 15 billion that are running projects in the county government. So my question is, what is that magic bullet that will incentivize statistics such that when I move out of this room, I take it to Turkana and statistics is actually accepted just like any other tool that is being used in the country? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for those questions. Let's have this. There's one more. Let's have the last question at the front.
Okay, thank you. My name is Valdi Iso. I'm from South Africa and an ex-council member of the Statistics Council as well, a researcher by trade. I think just taking liberty to the Rwandan question, I'm pretty sure that within the given space, strategies, frameworks, guidelines, whatever, should support your legal framework in order to make it dynamic and fluid. You cannot constantly change your legislation to address those needs. So I take that point, and I think the third speaker has clearly illustrated that point. With reference to other data sources and the challenges that go with that, The policy that Stats South Africa has taken is that you cannot control the external environment. So people can do whatever they need to do, but if you want your data to be recognized, then official statistics, the criteria steps in. Do you have methodologies in place? Do you have standards to support it? Do you have metadata? If you don't have that, then your data that you're producing becomes questionable. That goes for anyone out in the market. But my question to the esteemed colleagues of the panel is that you can have all the legislation, you may or may not have budget to support it. COVID-19 has taught us that responsiveness in terms of survey-based data has declined globally. How do we address that, and have we moved away from survey-based methods? Are we advocating records, administrative records? And possibly to address the last speaker in terms of what happens in his county, do we have good monitoring and register data in place to actually build a statistical foundation? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Before my panelists respond to those questions and give their last words, I'm reminded that there's a closed door meeting for Director Generals of the National Statistical Offices and their representatives from the broader NSS. This is going to happen today. It's going to happen today, June 3rd at 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Eka Hotel. So for the Director Generals or their representatives who have not registered for the closed door informal meeting today evening at Eka at 6 to 7:30 p.m., please do register for that meeting. We'll be looking at Nairobi to Riyadh, basically picking the lessons from the Global Data Festival and the Kenya Space Expo and Conference, and moving that all the way to the upcoming World Data Forum. So please register for that. And if you need more information, you can visit boardroom number 2, where the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Secretariat is located. Or you can ask any staff member of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So I'm going to give the last word to my panelists as they respond to those questions. We have about 5 minutes to go. Then we can wrap it up. Thank you. Any responses? Freestyle. Thank you.
Maybe I can take on the question raised by the director of M&E from Turkana about the incentives for statistics, that it has been a problem getting resources to have it done, while other programs will be able to get funded and have the deliveries within the required time. I can also tell you that on this, if I take the first one, which then you have also linked to the element of lack of county statistical abstract for some of the counties, I would say the following one. When it comes to the incentives, we have, if you look at even our website, we have what we call the advanced release calendar, which spells out what kind of statistical product we are releasing at what time. There are those that we are releasing on a monthly basis. There are those that we are doing on quarterly basis. There are those that we are doing on a yearly basis. And so the story continues. Those that are ad hoc in nature would find their way in as at the time that they are ready, so that the public get to know about it. But again, when it comes to resources, it's always a problem, just as you have said, that it is a bit difficult to have this one done. And that's why we are proposing to have some kind of clauses that are tied to resources in terms of funding statistical operations. One other thing that we've tried to do, and in fact, my colleague Stephen has talked about it. Oh, he was my colleague. No, you know, I'm seated with the international guys. Now, I'm the only local here. Yeah, so the what happens is that through the National Strategy for Development of Statistics, we came up with, we brought on board the NSS players. And for the MDAs, we tried to ensure that we have their strategic plans on statistics embedded into the National Strategy for Development of Statistics so that we monitor how that is going, and that was also to help in getting funds for those institutions to undertake those SASCOL activities. Well, that is one of the areas that is weak that we need to strengthen. You know, these are sources of data, and whatever we are producing, if we are getting it from other sources, that information is as good as what is coming from the source. If the source is not very good, then the ultimate data that we are getting will not be good. And so it requires strengthening the sources of data. And that is also provided for the fundamental principle of official statistics that I talked about, is a number 5 of that. And so we would need in our revision of the law to strengthen that area of ensuring that all the MDAs are well supported, including the county government, so that we are strong in statistical production. Then the other issue is that if you have noted in the public participation that we are having for the revision of the Act, we are trying to come up with a proposal that we do not need a county Statistics Act and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Act. We need one act, which then is able to support all of us. And so the data that is coming from the counties would easily be, would form, when aggregated, would give us the national figures. And so then we should not even be struggling. Thank God, COG has understood what we are trying to do and have given us very good comments, so that once we put them together, we'll be able to have just one act to support everything. And I think that will also provide you with a way of ensuring that the county statistical abstracts are done in good time, unlike the situation that we are in currently. Now, because what we are in right now depends on the leadership of the county government. If they do not appreciate statistics, you will not see it. You'll only see the one that I did in 2015. I coordinated the first one for all the 47 counties. Yeah, that was the act of my work in 2015 when the first series were done. But now we left the county governments to really try to come up with their own, but of course with the technical support from our side. A few have done very well, but some have not managed to do it. The second one is about the maturity of data from other sources. What is really needed here, and this is coming from my friend from Rwanda, what is required here when it comes to the sources of data, as I've mentioned, your statistics that you're producing is as good as what is at the source. And so it requires that you work with the sources of the data. And in fact, in Kenya here, we are working through the technical working committees where we have linkages. We have the technical working groups that would bring together the different players, and we present what we have. We look at the concepts, we look at the definitions, and you'll be shocked to realize that we could be talking of a single terminology which means different things to different institutions. We have the word alien, which to the Kenya Wildlife Services, alien means something different from what the State Department for Immigration has it. So they have the same word, but for two different things. And we are collecting data from immigration, we are getting data from Kenya Wildlife Services. But now when you come to that one, they mean different things. So you have to realign them and ensure that classifications are also conforming to what is required. So it requires a lot of collaboration between the NSOs and all the sources of data. Thank you.
Colleagues, I'm very sensitive to time because we've gone beyond time, so I'm going to give very crisp responses. I'm happy to engage colleagues who ask the questions later. First of all, the designation of official statistics is not a sole prerogative of the National Statistical Office. It has to go through the National Quality Assurance Framework, and if it's well structured, all the players that are producing the emerging data sources should be part of the process. So if we have that clarity in mind, then the designation of official statistics should not be a problem. Colleagues, I'm socializing with the StatCom that UNECA is going to organize from the 19th to 23rd of October this year, where we're going to try and bring all the emerging data sources together, the lead agencies that are advocating for them, so that we can properly guide countries, member states, on which type of emerging data source is ideal to solve a particular type of development indicator. From our colleague from Kenya, on the conversation on financing, yesterday I talked about it. We keep talking to ourselves, thinking that the policymakers are ignorant of the fact that statistics is not important. This is the time for us to change the languaging of the statistics that we produce, why I emphasize value and lives in our conversation on statistics. And lastly, the issue around incentivizing what we do. We need to be part of the conversation. If we are not part of the conversation on financing, it's not going to happen. And in my mind, that is the way we can get a better hearing from the policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think in 1 minute I can summarize because we don't have time. And the questions are very pertinent. The first one, the future of statistics. We get more data from other sources, not necessarily the NSOs. But if the acts stipulate well what is official statistics, then we need not to worry because different players will work together to make their statistics to be official. And we don't need to worry so much on what will be disseminated by other sources. Then the question by a county director from Turkana in terms of giving incentives for statistics, it's a bit difficult challenge, but I'm seeing it happening with partners, IMF, World Bank. I'm seeing them looking at financing results-based activities. I think in Kenya, DG, you must agree, we've been having a program for results since 2015, which has worked well. And I think from 2023, it moved to regional, that is the EAC region, where you agree on the activities that a country should be able to achieve with specific timelines. And then the World Bank is able to reimburse the funds after those outputs are delivered. It's a very good incentive for NSOs, which maybe even other NSO from other regions can be able to tap into because you are able to produce results within the time that you have agreed upon. I must say that I'm very, very thankful based on the questions and the comments that have come from the floor. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our wonderful panelists. And with that, we've come to the close of this session on the future of NSOs. I'm also reminded that there's another session by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that's coming up here at 4 p.m. We'll be looking at the future of census, digitization, and the global pathways to the 2030 round. So be back here at 4 p.m. So we'll have another session to discuss the future of censuses. It's been a pleasure hosting this panel. My name is Davis Adiano. I'm Chief Operating Officer at I Am the Code. If you're interested in skilling, capacity building, and strengthening and access to digital learning content, we at I Am the Code are offering over 67,000 courses on our global learning platform with full certification. If you're interested in that, please talk to me and we'll discuss further how you can access these really important learning resource materials available on our global learning platform, free of charge and fully certified. They cover a lot of the topics that we have been discussing here today. So thank you so much. And a kind reminder for those who haven't registered for the Director General's event this evening, please do so immediately after this session. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We have a photo of the panelists, and I'm also reminded that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is very generous with its panelists and moderators. We are going to receive a gift from the team. So I think we'll have the photo first, and then we can receive the gift. And somebody will have to deliver the gift to Howie after we are done here. Thank you very much, everybody.